A few years ago, a helpful parishioner suggested that to help keep down the vast vicarage garden, I should borrow a handful of sheep. So I asked a friend of mine who keeps a small flock in Gloucestershire. "Oh no," she said, "they're far too much work." Proved how much I knew about sheep farming, and that's how it is for most of us. In Jesus' time and location, sheep farming was really part of everyday life. Everyone knew its problems and its issues. It was essential to the economy. That's why he mentioned it so often, to give his listeners a handle on his underlying message, although some of them still didn't get it. Unless we are countryfile fans or farmers, it's not so immediate for us, especially if we're flatlanders. But sheep management headlines in today's gospel flashback. The passage comes well before the Easter narrative in St. John's account of the Jesus story. In our scheme of readings, it links God being recognised in the risen Jesus and the birth of the church. This Sunday's extract is the preamble to Jesus describing himself as the Good Shepherd, terribly familiar title, and so we take it for granted and overlook its various topical and cultural details. But not only does it flesh out what sort of God Jesus reveals, it also reminds us exactly how the alternative rabbi had clashed with the religious establishment. Meanwhile, back at the sheep, townies might superficially think how cute and cuddly the little bleaters look in pastures green. But for Jesus, this illustration was grittier and multi-layered. Consider one ancient shepherd's observations. "Nobody reckons us shepherds. We're right up there with foreign migrants and travellers. We don't belong. Not in the slightest trustworthy or skilled. Well, granted, few of our number are crooked as you like. Comes from spending so long out in the wilderness, unsupervised mostly. It's hardly what you'd call a top job, rough and ready conditions, making sure the most wayward of livestock gets enough to eat, pulling them out of scrapes, fending off the predators. Risky, obviously. Doubling as midwife, cleaning them wounds, carrying them about when they're sick or lame. They weigh a ton, stinking like a cesspit most of the time, and never, ever having clean fingernails. We lives on the edge. Health and safety? You're lucky if you got sturdy shoes or an unripped cloak. But sheep's valuable, you know. Meat and milk, hair and hide, versatile. And if you treat them right, a self-increasing investment. Never mind, vital part of the supply chain. It is tough out in the wild for weeks on end, scorching in the daytime, freezing in the night. Forgot what my family looked like. Never around even when my kids was born. Have to put the sheep first. They need me, see? If you're not cut out for it, well, no wonder so many stray off the straight and narrow, climbing over someone else's sheepfold wall and making off with a couple of their beasts. That's easy pickings. And the devil makes work, you know. Shepherds do quite a lot of loitering. And then there's that other old saying, give a dog a bad name. If people despise you, what you got to lose? But some of us is proper husbandmen. I knew every single one of my flock by name, how old it was, which lamb was which's, like family to me, you know. Gee, boy, that was the fastest thing on 4 legs. Jacob fished him out of a well when he were a nipper. Absalom, gorgeous wool, always getting caught in the bushes. dear old Naomi and little Ruth trotting along behind her. Clever, feisty Judith. Miriam, Delilah, Tabitha. Oh, and my naughty Jezebel. I'd know straight off if one were missing. Search to the back and beyond to find it, even if I had 99 others. Oh, and it's no good you thinking you can get 'em where you want 'em by calling, "Here, sheepy, sheepy." Huh? Rustlers soon find out. My sheep know my voice, know their names, they come to me. With me, I leads 'em out and they follows. They trust me, mostly. But you ask to guide 'em, they don't know what's best, what's safe, or what'll hurt 'em. They're fairly biddable. Of course, there's always one. Jezebel. When they were all in a sheepfold, you had to sleep across the doorway, like keep the flock in, the mountain lions, the wolves and jackals out. Had to be handy with me stick many a time, essential equipment. To the bandits, them as give shepherds such a bad name. Sheep are just numbers, objects, dim enough to exploit and abuse. Hard cash, not precious living creatures. Them are only in it for themselves in the end. Makes me wild when I think they even call themselves shepherds. All I ever wanted to see was my little lot flourishing. Keep 'em safe, well-fed, multiplying and healthy, living their best lives. Jehu and Jacob, and Absalom, Naomi and little Ruth, Judith, Miriam, Delilah, Tabitha, all my girls, and not forgetting the black sheep of the family, Jezebel. According to John, Jesus took a potshot at the religious leaders of his day and their equally self-interested and misguided predecessors before showing how he was different. Shepherds had been a byword for care and leadership in Israel over centuries, but perhaps he was also talking about them because lately shepherding had fallen into such disrepute. Jesus, as ever, identifies with the despised and marginalised. Maybe that's why the Pharisees don't get it. That shepherd's cap is never going to fit their proud heads. The major difference, it seems, between good and bad shepherds probably comes down to a single word: love. All that God is. The good shepherd genuinely cares about his flock as individuals and a body. He doesn't manipulate or abuse them. He simply makes himself a gateway to a fulfilled life. He'd even give his own for them. He protects, he nurtures, he facilitates. And perhaps the sheep, who don't trust or even listen to the cowboys, will follow faithfully. Even Jezebel.